since 1951. This is The Legend. 105.3, 95.3, WDXE.
And it is time for Bulletproof Estate Planning with our friend Stan Pierchoski this morning. How are you, buddy?
It is time for Bulletproof Estate Planning, and I'm doing wonderful. How about you?
Been a whole week since you've been here.
It has.
Yeah,
it has.
So it's Friday again, and this hour, of course, is brought to you by
Pierchoski Estate Law.
Pierchoski Estate Law in Pulaski, Tennessee. You must have had a big week.
Had a big week. Had a big week both on the business front and the personal front. Business front, we stayed pretty busy. We had quite a few meetings and signings this week. And on the personal front, my daughter and her husband who live in Florida are here with my two grandchildren.
Oh, that makes life fun.
So our house now has a 2.5-year-old and a brand new 6-month-old child.
Oh.
And, it's good to hear little children noises in the house again.
Kind of hard to leave the house when you got that going.
And they're really good kids. One's 2.5, so I don't have to say anymore. But the other one seems to be a really good baby. I mean, he doesn't seem to be too fussy.
Yeah.
But he's 6 months, so.
Yeah, there you go. He hadn't learned. He's going to learn before too long. Like let's see, I've got a 9-month-old grandbaby now, and he's beginning to learn that he can get what he wants if he throws a big enough fit.
Okay. This one's on the very verge of crawling.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell if he's going to crawl or get up and walk. I think he's going to.
Yeah.
I think if he crawls, it's going to be.
It's
long
fun to
enough
watch.
He'll crawl long enough to get up and walk.
Fun to watch.
Yeah.
Fun to watch.
But he tries, and then he'll start to whine because he gets frustrated because he's trying to get to something he can't get to.
Yeah. They grow fast.
They
man.
do.
They do. It's amazing.
It's scary.
Totally amazing.
When we had our kids, it's like that's how you feel when you're getting old. Is when your kid turns 10 years old, and it's like, wow, 10 years.
Oh, I know.
Or becomes an adult, or gets married. I mean, looking at the grandchildren and all that, it gives me a thought to give my own, estate plan somewhat of a thought because we got these two new people.
Yeah.
That I want to make sure they're taken care of one way or another. And,
Sure.
I've given that some thought about what I'm going to do, and
yeah.
and those are the kind of life things that come up that
Absolutely.
you can do an estate plan, but things change. It's dynamic. It don't always change a lot, but there's certain things like that happen. You get married, you get new people in the family, you get divorced. Things change that way. I mean, it can change many different ways, but
life has a way of moving.
Oh yeah. Whether you want it to do or not,
Yeah, that's
just when you say, my life is nice and routine, I'm happy, I like being in a
Yeah.
rut, and then it's just it changes.
Things change. That's right.
Something comes along to disrupt it. We're not built to be complacent.
Yeah, that's right. I had Daniel in here with me yesterday. He's now 13.
Yeah.
Nearly as tall as I am. May, my daughter, is 15. Got her a little part-time job, and soon will be 16. So things are happening. You have to start planning. Okay, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do for that? And that's what some of this is all about. Our conversations with estate planning, and there's so much to do, so much to think about.
Oh yeah, I mean these people need to be taken care of. A lot of people can take care of themselves, but I mean if something's untimely, it's a different story. And that's if we're not here working all our lives, putting in a lot of sweat equity on our jobs, for how many years? 30, 40 years sometimes. Saving,
Yes.
investing, thinking about what we're going to do with our money and how to protect it. If we can't do it to give or leave or help take care of our family, I mean, there's not a whole lot of point in it. Then it's just money in the bank and it loses a lot of meaning. So
these are family issues. These are family times, and the dynamics of that can be quite diverse. There's lots of things that can be, like you said, changing, so there's a lot of thought that needs to go into the kind of planning that you do with families.
That's right. So anyway, speaking of planning, we have a seminar coming up here at WLX. It's about 3 weeks out. It's July the 13th, which is a Saturday.
Yes.
And of course, we do our Saturday seminars at 10 o'clock in the morning. And here at WLX, in the back of the building, they've got a nice big venue where we can put up some tables and chairs and plenty of room, good sound. So it's good. It's a great venue to have them, and that's where it's going to be. We call it Will's Trust in the Nursing Home. And that next one will be right here.
Yes.
On July the 13th at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I'll bring that up again at the end of the hour. But if you want to get RSVP'd for that, it's a really loose RSVP process. We just call and give us a head count so we know how many chairs to set out. And, if you can't come to the last minute, then just pop in. It's not that big. We always put up extra.
There's plenty of room there.
Yeah, and it's not that formal that we got to. It's not like we're going to make up name tags for you. But we do have light refreshments, and we don't like to run out of those. Of course, the people that make the light refreshments make them in such a way that no matter who shows up, we would never run out of those. They are very plentiful, let me put it that way. So anyway, come to that. That'd be great. We're getting ready for a fair hearing that's on July the 1st. It's a case that I brought up a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
One where we got some eligibility issues. And so that's all set for July the 1st, which I guess is going to be a week from Monday.
Yes.
We're all ready. We feel good about it. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty confident it's going to settle before the hearing. But I'll keep you posted.
That's interesting. It's interesting to hear, some of these, real life cases that you've run into, and circumstances that you've had to kind of wade through the issues and find solutions.
Well, this is one where the fair hearings are really an easy part of it, and the reason is because with us, they're 100% of the time when we get a denial, it's an inappropriate denial.
Yeah.
The one we're doing. Just to be, I think I talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but one of the things was they imposed a penalty period.
Yes.
You get penalty period when you give things away, right?
Yes.
We talk about that many times. And in this particular case, there is a situation where the person gave away a certain amount of money. The mom and dad gave it to the daughter.
Right.
A certain amount of money. It was like, I don't know, let's say $50,000. But when we got on board, we gave it back. Okay.
Yes.
Gave it back in 2 installments. We gave $25,000 back in one time, and about a month later, we gave the other $25,000 back. So in Tennessee, when you make a gift and create a penalty period, now this would have been a penalty period when we filed, because this was all done before the filing.
Right.
So in order to not have the penalty period, you can cure the penalty period by getting the asset back. So and the asset was cash in the first place, so we gave cash back. Now the penalty goes away, and the reason for that is the person's financial position is the same as it was. I mean, they had $50,000 of accountable resources before they gave it away.
Right.
Now, when we give it back, now they are back to having $50,000 of accountable resources.
Yes.
So there's no need for a penalty period because Tennessee allows both partial or complete cures, and this was a complete cure.
Okay.
Now we have the $50,000 we have to do something with, and we did. Okay.
Right.
Now, so then we file the application after we fix all that. And what they did was they imposed a penalty period, and surprisingly enough, the penalty period exactly matches up with a gift of $50,000. Okay, and we had supplied all this, and when we filled out the appeal,
Yeah.
usually to appeal you just have to say we're going to appeal, but we go the extra mile and put in all the reasons why.
Yes.
And we showed and it was the records were exhaustive. I mean, it
Yes.
showed the money coming out of mom and dad's bank account going to the daughter's bank account.
Yes.
Okay. It showed them at certain time half of it going back to the mom and dad from the daughter's bank account to the mom and dad's bank account.
Yeah.
Then a month later, it showed the other half going back.
Right.
And it's the bank accounts. See where the funds became. The one bank, the payee bank, went to the payor bank
Right.
and deposited the funds.
Right.
The check process, right? So it's 200% clear that the money was returned.
Yes.
Okay. Now, for them to argue that there's a penalty period is a tough road to hoe. I mean, we got them painted into the corner so tight. I don't know what they can come up with.
Yeah.
Or if they come up with something, it's just going to be a bizarre argument or a common sense
Yeah.
or a street vernacular reason,
Yeah.
which is not founded in law because
Yeah.
the law is extremely clear. So
They
I
can't
feel-
just do it because they want to.
And I think when they look at it and to get ready for the hearing, they're going to say, how the heck am I going to argue that this is a penalty period?
Yeah.
When it was clearly cured, and they even cite the statutes that allows us to cure it.
Yes.
So I'm very confident we'll get a phone call and they'll just say, okay, you're right and we're wrong. We'll just settle it and give it, take away the penalty period and grant the approval. That's usually what happens. And it happens because we set it up that way in the first place.
Yeah.
So when we file an application, the person is eligible under
Yes.
the rules. So if they come back and say they're not, then we know they're doing something inappropriately or not following the rules somewhere, and then we find out what it is.
Yeah.
And then when we have the hearing, we bring it up. And the hearings are usually pretty short. Every now and then we have one that's a little lengthy, but they're pretty straightforward because once we explain to the court what was done, why it's wrong,
Yeah.
the statutory authority that says here's how it should have been done, and here's how what we did supports eligibility.
Right.
So far I've been 100% successful on fair hearings.
This reminds me of something that's been said many, many, many years ago concerning lawyers, and that is that good lawyers don't ask a question they don't already know the answer to.
That's very much akin to what I just said. You're exactly right.
It's just like what you just said. You don't ask something that you don't already know the answer to.
When you look at the application, it asks a bunch of questions. It's 16 pages long.
Yeah.
And so what we know is we know what they're going to do with the answers. Okay, so it's like this. If you're filling out a 10-K application, you got $100,000 in the bank.
Right.
And so it asks, you got any bank accounts? Yes. How many? 3. How much is in each of them? What bank's it with? That sort of thing. So when you get to the one, you just have to say, you got to be straightforward. You can't lie to them.
Right.
Because then you're flirting with 10-K fraud. You don't want that.
You don't want that, no.
So you say, I got $100,000 in the bank. Well, it doesn't take a PhD to figure out that if you mail that application into them or fax it to them, that they're going to deny you for being over-resourced.
That's right.
I can tell you right now, don't even bother sending it in. I know what the answer is going to be, which is what happens when folks are in a facility and the facility offers to fill out the application.
Yeah.
They will. I've had people say, well, we'll do it for free. We won't even charge them for it.
Yeah.
And that's right. That's exactly what they do. They do fill the application out for you, and they don't even charge you for it. But here's what they do. They say, gee, Jeff, do you own any property? Yeah, I own a home. Okay, what's that home worth? Oh, well, write it down. Do you own any other property? Yeah, I got a lot across town or a rental home.
Right.
Oh, yeah, okay, what's that address and what's that tax?
Right.
What's say it's worth? Do you have any money in the bank? Yeah, I got some money in the bank. And do you got any CDs or 401ks or IRA, qualified funds? Oh, yeah, we got this, we got that. They answer the questions, write it all down. They answer all the questions 100% correctly.
Yep.
But I'm telling you right now, there's no point in sending it in because you are over-resourced.
Yeah. So what they're going to do is they're going to deny.
And then they say to you,
yes,
Jeff, I got some news for you. 10-Care sent your application back and said they denied it for being over-resourced. So just keep paying our bill until everything's gone.
Yeah.
And then we'll send it in again, and you won't be over-resourced.
Yeah.
Now, that is a way, not a very good way in my opinion, but it is a way. So what we do is
it's what you don't want to do.
We fill out the application the exact same way they do it. Now we say to ourselves, okay, he's got $100,000 in his bank account. That we got to do something with that. He's got these IRAs. We got to do something with that. The primary residence, we know how to take care of that, but the other piece of rental property he owns is considered other real estate and falls in a different category, so we need to do something with that. And we go through all these, what is the something we can do with these to make you eligible? And what that is protecting the property by converting it from a countable asset into a non-countable asset or a non-countable stream of income or some other category that doesn't disqualify you for care.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how, people say, well, do people who have a lot of money or people that are millionaires qualify for 10-Care? And the answer is yeah, every day. And it's not that we're doing something off the cuff. I mean, these are the rules that they allow us to do it. The rules are not designed for you to go broke to be in care. But that's the common understanding. If you Google it or talk to the guy across the street, everybody says you have to be absolutely broke before you can qualify.
Yes. That's
just not the case. If it was the case, how would we have anybody in the nursing homes?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got some property that you've been working. If you're doing any kind of job all your life, you own stuff. You know? And then it doesn't really require you to not have any stuff to get qualified. It just has you. Here's one of the key things. Everybody hears the word spend down.
Yeah.
You got to spend down. You got too much. You got to spend down. That's a very unfortunate word because it means if you don't look it up and absent anything else, it sounds like you're just supposed to go and blow your money or go on a spree and spend it on stuff and get rid of it and get it down to a certain amount. Or the facility will say spend it down by paying the bill every month until it's gone. Yeah. Spend down does not mean go on a spending spree. Okay.
Right.
Spend down is a legal term. It's right in the 10-Care Act, and it means to recategorize your property.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean spend it.
Yeah.
Recategorize it means if you have $100,000 in a bank account, that's a countable asset. And remember, I say if you don't understand what countable means when I talk about an countable asset, insert the words for countable. Insert the words available for the cost of care.
Yes.
Is a good way to think about it. So if you got $100,000 in a bank account, it's available for the cost of care because you can get at it. You just go get it. You can write. So if we want to make it not available for the cost of care or uncountable, we've got to change its posture because money in the bank is available.
Yes.
So one of the things we can do is if you're married, we can go purchase a spousal annuity a Medicaid compliant spousal annuity and turn that $100,000 into an uncountable stream of income that pays to your spouse. Now they get it all back, plus any interest if it's been in there, if it takes any length of time.
Yeah.
So we completely protect that 100%, every dollar. Because especially when you're married, we got tons of extra things we can do than if you're single.
Right.
And so so we go through each one of these assets that you have. We have our own intake. We don't fill out an application and then look at it. We have our own intake form that explores all this stuff. If you have a life insurance policy, like a whole life, that's got, let's say it's a $50,000 life insurance policy with a death benefit of $50,000, but it has a cash surrender, because it's a whole life, it has a cash surrender value of maybe, $4,500 or something like that. That is considered an asset that's available for the cost of care. If you're in care, they will expect you to cash that thing out, get the cash value, and spend it on them. Now, most people get life insurance not for that reason. They get it so it goes to the beneficiaries they name, right? Well, the long-term care industry is going to require you to spend that. If you don't spend it, they're going to hold it against you as a penalty period.
Right.
To keep it as life insurance with a death benefit. So we go through every one of these assets, and we modify its posture until it's in a posture that is protected, and then we fill out the application, okay? How much money do you have in a bank account? None. How many annuities do you have? We have one. How much? $100,000. What kind of annuity? What's Medicaid compliant under this particular statute and is not considered a countable asset? It has been spent down. It has been recategorized into something else that now does not affect eligibility.
Right.
And we do that with each and every thing. So when we send that in, you're eligible. I won't send it in unless it's eligible. If you have to delay on something, we delay. So we send it in, it's eligible. So if they come back and say for any reason we're denying, they made a mistake because we did everything exactly what the rules say to do with everything we put into it. Right. And we know what they're going to do with the answers. And 100% of the time that I've been doing this, it has been a mistake that they made. So my system works. My system works very well. Do we still have to have fair hearings? Yes, because the people that look at it sometimes don't understand what we do because they don't understand the rules. And you think they would, but they don't. I talked a few weeks ago about something we call the Tennessee two-step, which that really confuses them. So when we do that, we try to explain it and spoon-feed them with every movement and every step that we make and show what supports what we're doing, what rule allows us to do that.
Exactly.
But again, we still deal with it, and that's what's happening here a week from Monday. They imposed a penalty period that was clearly cured. I don't know what they're going to argue without looking silly. Yeah. And so that's why I suspect when they start looking at it, it'll settle before the hearing date. And that happens a lot too, if they have an open mind. Okay. Sometimes they just dig their heels in, have a hearing. And I've had several ones where the judge, the administrative judge, kind of read them a riot act on stuff and said, this was a waste of the court's time. This rule is clearly the rule, and this is what they did, and you clearly didn't do what the rule said.
Right, exactly.
And so they, and they order, that happens every now and then.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just, I'm not saying the TennCare goes out of their way to do this. Yeah. I'm just saying the nature of the beast. I understand that, I think they have a tremendous attrition there because when we have a caseworker, it seems like every time we talk to them or communicate with them, it's a different one.
Yeah, I think very well could be the case. You're just dealing with someone who's new to the system and
same case, different one.
Yeah.
A month later, same case, different person. So I don't understand what goes on there. But it sounds like if you're trying to piece it together, it sounds like they have a high attrition rate. The case passes from hand to hand. Yeah. When that happens, you got to learn the history of the case.
Right. Like
sometimes you call somebody on a credit card to make for some reason. They can call up the call history and they look at it. And they say, okay, I see where you called in 3 weeks ago and this and this happened or something.
Right.
You have to know the history. You can't just pick it up in midstream and know what's going on. And I think that happens a lot. And like I said, I'm not really bashing it. I think, could the system be better? It could. It is a government-run situation, so it's inherently inefficient and cumbersome.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is. They all are. What's the fix for that? I don't know. So I'm not going to complain about it because I really don't have the answer. But I wouldn't want to run it because it's a lot. There's a lot going on.
To do.
And so, anyway, but we do what we do, and they acknowledge when we do this. They acknowledge it, and we get our clients eligible. I mean, I've never managed and I've never failed to get somebody eligible yet.
Yeah. Speaking of, I have kind of a question that may be somewhat out of left field regarding this because it's come up within my own family.
I love left field questions.
You like left field?
Yeah,
well,
I do.
Do you ever deal with and with veterans benefits and how this affects this process, or does it at all?
It does, and I do.
Okay. We hadn't talked about that I know of.
Not much. Surprisingly, I don't get a lot of vets for this kind of planning. I mean, I thought I'd get more. I became what is called VA accredited to do this.
Okay.
And they have their own set of rules. In other words, in Tennessee, I've mentioned before that Medicaid is the federal act, right?
Yes.
In Tennessee, version, every state has their own version of Medicaid. Medicare, which is the insurance, is the same in all 50 states.
Right.
But in Medicaid, which is the long-term care payments, each state has its own version of it, and ours is called TennCare. And every state has a different set of rules. Some are very similar, but they always have some subtle differences, even though they're similar. But they all. So I say, when you come to Medicaid, you look at one big bubble that's the federal act, and inside it are 50 other bubbles.
Right.
They can do a lot of their own stuff, but they can't escape the rules of the big bubble. You know what I mean? So, and that's kind of the way it is. So now, the Veterans Administration has their own version of Medicaid.
Okay.
It's called Aid and Attendance.
Okay.
It's called Veterans Pension, which is an unfortunate name, because when you think of pension, what do you think of? A retirement account,
you think of
right?
a retirement account.
It's not that at all. It's called Veterans. It's a pension plan. A subset of the pension plan is Aid and Attendance, and Aid and Attendance is the program the vets have for long-term care. Okay. And it's a whole new set of rules. I mean, they don't consider the primary residence in the equation at all. Okay. They don't have their 5-year look-back rule is only 3 years.
Okay.
Now, they used to have none since 2019, but then they came up with it went 3 years.
Okay.
And what that does for us is, if you're worried about care, and you've got this 5 years we normally have to worry about, we might be able to get vet benefits earlier than we can get TennCare benefits, because they'll be available in the 3 years versus the 5. Okay. But again, we're all talking about if you're giving things away in penalty periods, right?
Okay.
So for the vet benefits, like, it's a whole new set of rules. I mean, I couldn't cover it in.
Let me give you a scenario.
Hour,
will it help if I give you a scenario?
Maybe.
I'm thinking. Here's one. Have a veteran who may be entitled to veteran benefits. They're going to a private pay assisted living.
Okay.
Private pay assisted living facility. But the facility says may be eligible for veterans benefits to help pay for part of this.
That's right.
So how does that work?
Well, if that person would apply for the vet benefits,
Yes.
It typically works out to be about a $2,000 a month benefit.
Okay.
Give or take a few. It depends, but give or take a few. That's usually where it falls into.
Now, do they take into account that he has assets?
Well, they do, but they take
or the veteran has assets.
They take it into account differently.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So, and there's certain things that you can have assets, but they have a dollar amount limit.
Okay.
And they don't include the home at all, which is great. But then what we can do is, if the person has more than those assets, which is a pretty big amount, but if he had more than those assets, what's over that asset limit, we take and convert to something else before we make the application.
Okay.
Okay. And so then when they approve that person, it typically works out to be a sum of money, which is about $2,000 a month.
Okay.
And that works for a veteran's spouse as well.
Interesting.
Now, sometimes the vet benefits, one of the things, when I say it's usually $2,000, sometimes when it's less than $2,000 is if you're also getting TennCare, which is possible to get both of them at the same time.
Okay.
If you're getting both of them, they cannot be duplicious. And if that's duplicious, means both can't pay for the same thing. So if they're overlapping at all, it will come out of the vet benefit versus the TennCare benefit.
Okay.
So let's just say, one of the things they're paying for is, medication.
Yeah.
And TennCare is also paying for medication. Well, you can't pay for it twice.
Yeah.
So they'll get something less than their $2,000 a month because of the
Right.
amount that was deducted from the vet benefit. But if you're entitled to it, you have to be a wartime vet. And every time I have to do that, I got to look it up. A wartime vet is essentially you got to be in active duty at time of war for at least 1 day.
Okay.
Which a lot of them fall into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because things like if I'm not mistaken, the Afghanistan conflict is still technically an active.
Yeah.
We've not closed that out yet.
Yeah.
And Vietnam was open for eons.
Yeah.
And Vietnam, long after Vietnam, was still considered an act of war.
Yeah.
And so it's when you close out when the Congress reaches what they call the cessation of hostilities. In other words, you declare war, and then war gets undeclared at some point.
Yeah.
Of course, Vietnam was strange because, and the wars these days are strange because in Vietnam it never was a declaration of war by Congress.
Yeah. It never was.
Because it was a police action.
And I'm not sure about the Korean War.
That was a police action as well, and that was never a war declared. But
Interesting.
it still is an active time of war,
Yeah.
and so satisfies this wartime vet.
Interesting.
Yeah. So usually the wartime vet is not too hard to make work.
Yeah.
Occasionally it comes up, but most of the time it's not too hard to satisfy.
Very interesting.
So once you get that, I mean, it is a extra benefit that vets have.
Yeah. Very good.
And again, if there's penalties involved and waiting periods, well, we can get those benefits a little sooner because
Yeah.
their look-back period is 3 years. Or when if we do pre-planning ahead of time, you've heard me say, if you put
Yes.
property in a trust, they can still impose a penalty 5 years after putting it in the
Yeah.
trust, right? So, but if you do the same thing with the vets, it no longer is an issue after 3 years.
Right.
So the whole goal is you put property into an asset protection trust and then stay the heck out of the nursing home for 5 years. That's the goal. Well, if something happens and you do go in the nursing home and it's at 3 years, you could drive the vet benefits at that point, but still not be getting the TennCare benefits yet. So it would be very helpful to get to the 5 years having the benefits that come from the VA.
Interesting.
So, yeah. But it's got its own set of rules. I got to go through the reaccreditation every 2 years. There's certain things I have to do as far as what we call CLE, continuing learning education. I got to expend so many hours in the VA accreditation program and to stay accredited and stuff.
Awesome.
But I don't do as much of that as I expected I would. But I mean, we do it.
Yeah. Well,
when it comes up.
Yeah. It's interesting that we've got probably those who have earned those benefits should use them.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't.
Well, and sometimes they're hard to get. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not as I know some folks that try and it gets denied and they just won't give them.
Yeah.
Because their rules are different. Some places they're a little more stringent.
Yeah.
Some places they're a little more liberal. It just depends on what you got and what we're trying to do. So
Right.
I mean, it's like anything else. Everything's different. The dynamics are different. But it's available, and if it's available for you to get it, it's worth going after.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. And, we're all for our veterans getting the benefits they
absolutely.
have earned, absolutely. And, of course, that's part of all of this, that we've talked about before, considering Medicaid and TennCare, is that, those of us that have plugged away and worked all our lives, as said, now you've been paying for it for a while.
That's right.
And so these are not what's the difference in a benefit and an entitlement?
A benefit and a right or something.
Or a right or whatever.
Yeah.
So
well, you're entitled to TennCare benefits because you
That's
have
right.
been
You're entitled to
involuntarily
those.
participating in the program.
That's right.
Speaking of the program, here's a little fun fact. Even now, I find that the Medicaid Act was signed into law July the 30th, 1965, which means coming up here July the 30th, it'll be 59 years old.
Yeah.
So we had it for, 6 decades, right?
Wow.
And it surprises me that when you read articles about it by journalists,
Yeah.
they still don't get it. They still don't understand it. On my other radio show I do Sunday night, I had found an article that I was picking apart because somebody who claimed to be knowledgeable,
Yes.
and they spouted off this article and clearly were not. And
Yeah.
I was pointing out all the inconsistencies, and it's all the same stuff I talk about.
Yeah.
They have in this article that you can't qualify for TennCare if your income is over the $2,829 a
Yeah.
month, and that's just not true. We are an income cap state, but the real criteria is your income simply needs to be less than the cost of care.
Yeah.
So if your cost of care is $9,000 to $9,500 a month, and your income's more than that, you won't become eligible because all the income goes to the cost of care. And if you
Right.
make that much,
Right.
you don't need TennCare.
Right.
So that's, but it is over the cap of $2,829
Sure.
a month. But there's a fix for that. We just put that into a qualified income trust, and it still ends up going to the nursing home, to the facility.
Yeah.
But we can fix it because the theory is if you're $1 over that, you're disqualified. Well,
Yeah.
if you don't go any further than that, then you think, well, gosh, Mildred, we make $3,000. I make $3,000 a month, and so that I'm disqualified. No,
Yeah.
the answer is no. We just take the overage and put it somewhere where it's going to go to the facility anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird process, but it's certainly easy. I mean, I spend most of my time in the resource eligibility. Income eligibility is easy to we can fix that with a stroke of a pen.
Yeah.
That's easy. And
Interesting.
so, you know, many times we make people over the cap because they like that spousal annuity. Let's say the spouse has low income. Well, when she gets the annuity, for the length of the annuity, she's going
Right.
to have a very big income because we got this huge annuity paying to her. Which is income.
Yeah,
So, you know, and those are the rules. You know, we know how to work with the rules, and that's. But how do we get started on that?
I asked you about the veterans benefits. We went from there.
Yeah, but we somewhere transitioned.
We transitioned. I don't know.
Yeah, but anyway,
Well, you're talking about the article that you found.
yeah.
The article you found that where there were so many errors.
six
and
decades later, right?
misunderstandings about how this actually works.
That's right. And you know that was one. Another one is this business of you cannot, of all the things you own, you cannot own stuff that's valued more than $2,000, which is how it was written. If I remember right, that was
Yeah.
the language it used.
Yeah.
It said, you know, they said of everything you own, its value cannot exceed $2,000. And I think we talked about this last
So
week
is
and the week
that,
before.
that's an accumulated, right?
Everything you own, its value cannot exceed $2,000. This is what the article said. Now,
Yeah.
for anybody that's listening, I'm not saying that's the fact. That's the article. What the article said, which is 100% wrong.
okay, it was
but I'm
wrong.
repeating the way it was written.
Okay.
Because it was so wrong the way it was written.
Interesting.
That's what they say. And you said that's accumulative. Well, that's what it sounds like. It says.
sounds like, yeah.
And when you think about it, who doesn't? If you gather everything you own, who doesn't have $2,000 of value?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, this day and age, anyway. So if that's the case, how can anybody ever be in a nursing home?
Yeah, I think I've got. I think in Teresa's car there may be that much.
In between the
There
seats.
may
right?
be that much under the seat somewhere
Yeah,
that the kids have thrown out. So
I
don't
mean,
know.
and again, I don't mean to be condescending if somebody's of limited means, but I mean it's not hard. It's not a very high burden to make $2,000. But that's not what it means at all. It doesn't mean everything you own has to be gathered up, put a value on, and if it's over $2,000, no sense applying because you won't be eligible. It does not mean that. What they are skipping out is the actual words that are in the statute, which are the words that really count.
Yeah.
And you've heard me say over and over again, what the statute says, you have to have less than $2,000 of countable assets.
Right.
What's the operative word in that sentence?
Countable.
Everybody focuses on $2,000.
Yeah.
It's not. The important word there is countable. It's a category of assets. Okay.
Yeah.
And didn't I just say, oh, you got too many countable assets. You need to spend down.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably a correct statement, except for the fact that they don't know what spend down means.
Right.
So if spend down means recategorize your assets,
Yeah.
and you have too many countable assets, so why don't we make the countable assets, put them in a different category, and get down to $2,000. Now, everybody I get eligible has less than $2,000 of countable assets. You
Yeah.
see where this is going?
Yes.
I satisfy the criteria. Doesn't mean they have $2,000 to the name. If you come to see me and you have an estate worth $500,000,
Yeah.
I'm just picking a round number.
Yeah.
When we're done, when we get you down below $2,000 of countable assets, you still have $500,000 worth of uncountable assets.
Right.
We just recategorized it and protected it. Now, sometimes the protecting cannot reside with you, the person in the facility.
Right.
But we can keep it with the spouse, or we can keep it with the children. We can keep it in the family.
Yeah.
If you own it, you are disqualified.
Yes.
So you can't own it because if you own it, it's available for the cost of care.
Exactly.
So we want to protect it by keeping it in the family. And so we changed the category. There's multiple categories for it to be in. And then you can have actually tack different categories together for certain strategies. Like that Tennessee two-step. That was 3 strategies in one to get the result we wanted. you know.
Yeah.
And it works like a champ. So if you don't know there's these categories, I mean, if you think you just $2,000 to your name, you'll never be eligible.
Right.
Unless you do what the common street vernacular understanding is about what to do, and that is go in the nursing home, pay $9,000 a month, and keep paying it till everything's gone.
Right.
Sell the house, use it for cost of care. Liquidate the bank accounts, use it for cost of care. If you
Yeah.
do that, eventually, if
Yeah.
you're in the nursing home long enough, eventually you'll be down below $2,000. Now you'll be eligible, but it does not have to be that way. And a lot of people end up in that way.
Right.
I have a lot of people that come in and say, I'm here to talk about my planning. My mom or dad was in the facility,
Right.
and they didn't know any better, and they sold the house and spent every bit of it on care, and it's too bad. But I mean, it's hindsight at this point. But that's what the common thought is. If you go on the internet and search, and that's where I found this article,
Right.
and you go on the internet and search, that's the kind of diatribe you get. And I think people were of the opinion, when I was a kid, it was like, if it was in print, it had to be true.
Sure.
I mean, if it was typed out somewhere,
Yeah.
in a magazine or a book, it didn't matter what it
had to
said.
be
It had
so.
to be absolutely true because it was in print.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got the internet, and that's far from a true statement.
Oh my gosh.
Anybody and their brother wants to put out their opinion on stuff is there. And when
Yeah.
you Google it, some of that stuff comes up, and it's just not right. So, the only thing I can say is if you're interested in this kind of topic, you got a loved one in the facility or something, and you're worried about losing everything, and you hear me talk to me or talk to somebody like me that knows and understands how it works and find out, because I'm telling you, there are options that will fit, that will save, if not everything, a vast majority of everything, depending on where we are in the timeline, what's been done already.
Right.
Sometimes people will give property away so that the nursing home won't get it.
Right.
But then when they come to me and we have this gift we have to deal with, we can't get it back. If it's cash, it's not likely.
Right.
Sometimes if they give a house away, we can get the heir to redeed it back. That's possible. But if it's money, it usually gets spent and it's gone. So we it's when I say, if not 100%, a majority of it, there may be some things we can't recover from by the time it gets to me. But we're never without options.
Yeah.
There's always something we can do. Even the worst possible case, and I had one of these, was a do-it-yourself application. By the time it got to me, it was what they call a you-know-what show. I mean, it just was. Everything that could have been done wrong was done wrong.
It was a disaster.
It was. And so it made me take the policy of not doing do-it-yourself applications anymore. But I still do because people need the help,
Yeah.
But so we got into that thing, and we managed to end up with a favorable result. Now, the ideal result could have been a whole lot better.
Yeah.
But when it came to me, there were some things we could not recover from.
Sure.
Just couldn't. And so that now is gone and not available. But we exercised what options we could, and we got a pretty good result given the circumstances. Where it was headed was total impoverishment, complete loss of everything.
Right.
It was pretty much halfway there when we got it. So, but so that's my point is, you don't have to understand the rules, but you should understand that there are things you can do. What you hear from your neighbor across the street,
Right.
or what you hear from somebody that had a loved one in the facility and they lost everything, is not necessarily the way it has to be. Talk to me. Come to the seminar. I offer, if you come to my seminar, at the end of it, I give incentives. If you decide to do a trust plan or something, we have cost incentives where I take some money off the cost of a plan just because you spend a Saturday an hour or two
Right.
at my seminar, which I think needs to be rewarded. Okay.
Yeah.
Another incentive I offer is if you want to talk to me after being at the seminar, I offer what is called a family vision meeting. It's typically 2 hours long. It's usually never less than an hour to an hour and a half, and can be as long as 2 hours, where we
Right.
talk about your family dynamics, what's a good fit, if it's a crisis case, what and stuff like that, and I offer that time freely. So if you're interested, don't go on the internet and guess, and come hear it. If you like what you hear, we'll do something. If you don't like what you hear, or
Yeah.
we don't agree, or something, we don't do something. It's really that straightforward.
Yeah.
So it's available, and I make it available because of all the stuff that's out there on the internet. It's just bad. It's either misleading, at least, and completely wrong at most.
Yeah.
I
I can see where a lot of folks that are in this place in life, them and their families or whoever may be trying to help with the circumstance, are wading into areas that they're not necessarily familiar with, and they're probably going at it based on things that they've heard from friends or others, and may not necessarily be right, and they may just be guessing about, here's what I think we're supposed to do. Well, the thing that I've taken away from this is when you've got someone like you who knows the system and can help you, it eliminates a lot of the doubt, and you go in with some confidence and know that you're doing the right things, that you've got all the pieces in place, and that you've protected the assets of your friend or family as best that you can, and put them in the best possible position to move forward.
We certainly leave the
Yeah.
office with confidence.
Yeah.
Once they hear about what can be done.
The confidence level is what I'm, because just dealing with families and even my own family, we've all had those questions. Well, what do we do? Well, what do we do? And how do we even do this? And so that's what you're for.
And often I've gotten the response that this is too good to be true. Now,
Yeah.
I want to talk about that for just a second, because when you say this is too good to be true, it naturally triggers like a suspicion. Okay.
Right.
The reason it sounds too good to be true is it's completely inconsistent with what you've heard over the last 59 years, if you've been around that long, about what Medicaid is.
Right.
And that's what sounds too good to be true. What you've heard all these years from your friends, from people that were there, from people that don't know and understand it, is that if Aunt Gertrude goes into the nursing home, all is lost.
Right.
They're just going to get everything. There's nothing you can do.
Right.
You're just SOL. You
Right.
just got to pay them. Just write the check, and you're going to be broke. Just live with it. That's what you've been pounded into your brain over and over and over. Okay.
Exactly.
Now I come along and I'm saying it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
It can be other things. And so it's like, well, that's too good to be true. It's not that it's too good to be true. It's just what you've heard is so wrong.
Yeah.
It's so wrong to be true.
Yeah.
But but if you can get past that,
Yeah, it's not as bad as people made you think it is.
and the truth bears out, because we have something that seems too good to be true.
Yeah.
And then somebody sticks with me, and we do that. We take the money, we cash it out, we purchase the Medicaid compliant annuity, we spend it on the spouse, and the spouse gets every bit of it back.
Yeah.
And then they look at it and say, that worked exactly the way you said it was going to work.
Yeah.
We salvaged that entire bank account. Like I said, one of the ones that comes to mind was a $485,000 asset.
Yeah.
We turned it into a $485,000 spousal annuity, and not only did we paid it back fast.
Yeah.
We sometimes we pay it back fast if we're worried about the spouse's health.
Yeah.
But if the spouse is healthy, we stretch it out a little longer, because now it's a balancing between health and tax impact, stuff like that. But this was a short one for like 20 months or 18 months.
Right.
She got like a $20,000 check every month for under 2 years.
Yeah.
And in that short period of time, she also got like $3,500 worth of interest that it earned in that short period of time. So not only did she get it all back, she got some interest on it. But we protected every bit of it. And it was like, wow, that worked just the way you said it was supposed to work. So, I mean, the way it pans out, you may be skeptical about what it is, but that's only because you've never heard of it.
Yeah.
It's like some people say, well, I don't see how that can be so. I've never heard of that. I don't see how that can be so. Well, it is possible that something can work that you just hadn't heard of, right?
Yeah.
And so, you just have. I guess there's an element of trust there that I'm asking you to have in what we know and what we do.
Sure.
And I can even show folks where the authority is that allows us to do such a thing. And so, the point is, there are a lot of options. You may not have heard them.
Yeah. I had someone in my office just a few weeks ago, maybe I don't know how long ago, but not long ago, and they were talking about their relatives, a grandparent in this case, and had multiple pieces of property, and they talked to me about what are they going to do with some property. Their plan is grandmother was going to deed this property to this grandchild, because they didn't want, and here went, this alarm went off, because they didn't want the nursing home to get it. Mm-hmm. I said, before y'all do any of that, you need to talk to somebody, an attorney that does this kind of thing. Because they were talking about, we need to do this because we don't want this to happen. We need to do this. And I could tell that they were just basically doing what they thought they knew and really didn't know. And I think they actually even talked to you, so we'll see.
And a lot of the things that people think of like that, I'm telling you right now, they've already thought of that before the ink was ever dry on the Medicaid Act. Mm-hmm. It's nothing new under the sun when you think of, well, I'm going to deed your stuff away to my kids so that they can't get it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you can deed it to the kids.
Yeah.
But you have to. You should know and understand the consequences or the baggage that comes along with that.
Right.
So, I mean, people say, can I deed it away? The answer is, yeah, you can deed it away, but you might not like the result of that.
Right.
But you can certainly do it. There's no prohibition that says you can't do it.
Right. Right.
But when you do it, you got to realize you're creating this penalty period that's going to haunt you for the next 60 months,
Well,
if you go into care. So if you do it early enough, Yeah.
It absolutely can be done, and it can be done in a way that is protected, which they don't understand sometimes. It's not going to work out like they think it's going to if they don't do some right steps first.
If it's not something you want to hang on to, if the deed's not a piece of property, like it's other property or something, if it's
Right.
not like the family farm or something,
Right.
how about deeding it to your child like you want to do? Let the child sell it for what they can get, because when you deed it to the child, the penalty is going to be based on the tax appraised fair market value,
Right.
which is always lower than you can sell it for.
Right.
So let's say that's $100,000. So why don't you
Yeah.
give it to your child? If you filed a 10-car application, you would have a $100,000 gift. That would create about a year penalty. Okay.
Right.
So why don't you deed it to the child? Let the child sell it for 150 or 200,000. Turn around and give you $100,000 back that was the size of the gift you gave him.
Yeah.
Now the child is 100,000 net.
Right.
The gift of giving away the property of $100,000, you got $100,000 in cash back. You've now cured it.
Right.
Okay. Now you can go and give that. Now you can give away that $100,000. You can give it to your spouse, or you can give it, if you're single, you can give it to the child, where you can give them 60 or 70% of it, and use the balance to purchase an annuity to pay the penalty period you make when you gift him that 60 or 70%.
Right.
So what we've done, now the child's sitting at about $170,000 net.
Right.
And so, I mean, that's that's one of our versions of the Tennessee two-step.
Yeah. Exactly.
But
Exactly.
I mean, so there's you can tack strategies together and stuff like that. Now, if it's the family farm and we don't want to sell it, we want to keep it.
Right.
First thing we do is put it into an asset protection trust, because the minute we put it in there, they can't get at it. Now, they might be able to impose a penalty period for giving it to the trust, but we have saved the farm.
Yes.
And so we'll deal with the penalty period with what other
In
funds
another way.
Yeah, we'll mitigate and minimize that as much as possible.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I mean, there's all kind of thought process, and they can get pretty complicated.
Yeah.
We can tie up ownership. Don't do this. I'm just going to hit the highlights on this, but don't try it yourself, because this is usually scrutinized pretty heavily. But if you have a piece of property that you don't want lost, like it's the homestead and it's sentimental and nobody
Right.
wants to lose it, and you're in the nursing home or going there, well, you really can't. You can tie up the ownership by getting somebody to have 20% ownership, but you can't give it away now, because you're going to deal with this 5-year penalty for
Right.
giving away the value of the 20%, right?
Right.
But you could have a child buy it,
Yeah.
or you could give it away if it was 5 years before going to the nursing home. You could do that, but you have a child buy 20%, pay the fair market value for the 20%.
Yeah.
Now you have co-owners, right? Now at death, if it's a primary residence, now at death, 10-care estate recovery will kick in. Well, they'll go after what's in your estate,
Right.
and this house is in your estate. But in order to recover under Estate Recovery Act, they have to be able to sell the asset, and they can only sell the asset if all the owners agree to sell.
Yeah.
So the owner that owns 20% simply refuses to sell. Now, it's not like they get mad at you for that. They just now the law says if any of the owners refuse to sell, you can't sell it. So now they put it in their own category now called inaccessible assets.
Right.
And so it's solved, the case solved. Now, they scrutinize that. It's kind of more of a legal action. So
Right.
it needs to be done correctly to work, but it does work.
Interesting.
Better thing to do is have an asset protection trust several good years before you're going to get sick and go into the nursing home, and put your property in there and clear the 5 years, and then we just never even have to worry about it. Never had to sell 20%, never had
Yeah.
to worry about giving it away, stuff like that. So that's a
Interesting.
better thing to do with real estate. Real estate at the 11th hour presents a little more of a challenge.
Sure.
So, but we can do it, but sometimes we have to do
So
certain
it's a little
things.
bit. So if you just have funds,
I can deal with the money easier than I can deal with the real estate.
yeah.
But I can deal with real estate, but we got to get a little more creative and aggressive.
Right.
But we can do it. We can do it.
Interesting.
Where the funds are pretty simple.
Yeah.
Money in the bank is pretty easy to fix, even at the 11th hour.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to fix.
That's
that.
good.
We can convert it into something, just like that.
Yeah.
Where if it's money with a Vanguard or Fidelity, and we got to get up to them and cash it out, they take weeks and weeks.
Right,
And then
right.
meanwhile, if the person's private paying, we're financially bleeding to death because we can't file the application because this thing we're waiting on is over resourcing us. And as soon
Yes.
as we get our hands on the money, we can turn it into something else and then immediately file. But
Yeah.
when you deal with insurance companies, there's a delay. I've talked about that before.
Yeah,
so-
that's right.
Yeah, and it
That's
happens,
right.
so.
Well, let's remind folks of the seminar coming
Yes.
up. We got a couple of minutes left.
July the 13th, which is a Saturday.
Yes.
Our Saturday seminars are always done at 10 o'clock in the morning, right here at the WLX radio station in the back of the building.
Absolutely free, by the way.
Absolutely free. Free educational seminar. I focus on the word educational. You can
Yes.
focus on the word free if you want. Even have some light refreshments. Don't expect a meal, but
Yeah.
light refreshments. Miss Tammy's breakfast muffins are. Some people come back a second time. They say, "I'm just come back for the muffins."
I'll take steak and eggs, please.
Yeah, there you go. But it's right here. We have it. We started close to 10 o'clock as we can because
Yeah.
the presentation is about an hour to an hour, 10 minutes long or so.
Right.
It depends on how fast I can get through some of the stuff. But and then we have a very extensive question and answer period. You can stick around if you want, and usually we're there a long time answering questions, and it's very informative. And it's my favorite time because people ask questions and other people glean information from those because they have the same question in their mind. They just weren't the one that asked it. So, and I won't leave until the last question's asked. So don't have a question on your mind and leave without it being answered.
Absolutely.
Take advantage of the time I offer and bring it with you and ask it.
Yeah.
Or if you develop it during the presentation, ask it. So it's certainly, there's no downside to it. I mean, it's going to be a hot Saturday, no doubt. So it'll be a place to spend an hour and a half, or at least, with nice, cool air conditioning. So,
Yes.
so there's real no downside to it. You'll learn. I mean, we get great reviews on them. So
Yes.
people that come to them really feel like they learned
Very,
a
very
lot.
much worth your time.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And that's July the 13th.
Yeah, and so, call me at Pierchoski Estate Law, Pierchoski Elder Law, at 931-363-7222, 931-363-7222. And just tell us you're coming, how many are coming, and you'll get an email reminder or two or something,
Sure.
or a phone call, I think, the day before, just to say, remind you that it'll be there. And then if you can't commit, just pop in. Walk-ins are welcome.
Yes.
It's no big deal. We'll have room for you. Because we inevitably have some people that can't make it at the last
Yeah.
minute, too. So we call it Wills, Trusts, and the Nursing Home was the title of it, and that's what we talk about.
Yeah.
So, come to it, or you can go to my website. I think you can get RSVP that way.
Sure.
EstatePlanStan.com is the website, and you can email me or get the phone number and call from there. So
Absolutely.
I think that brings us pretty close to the
Yeah, it
end of
does.
the hour.
Stan Pierchoski, everybody. Pierchoski Estate Law, located in Pulaski, Tennessee, right there on the square. And of course, that phone number again, 931-363-7222. Check them out online, too, at
EstatePlanStan.
EstatePlanStan.
.com.
See you next time, buddy.
See you next time, Jeff.
I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
The court still has more than a dozen cases to issue decisions on by the end of the term.